Okay, let's talk a little bit about summer pruning of roses. And just as seasonally, summer and winter, their aspects are in opposition to one another, you could say. Well, the same with pruning, winter pruning versus summer pruning with roses. Winter pruning is pretty simple, and you basically just prune back hard to generate vigorous growth. Summer pruning is a little more refined and detailed. It has some particulars. You could call them rules, although you don't have to sweat too much about the exactness of the rules. It's just general guides for you. So, about roses. Their leaves, they have compound leaves. That is, they have an overall leaf structure that is composed of a number of different leaflets. And you can see in front of me here the way, as I said, roses throw their leaves. As you start near the top, they generally have leaves that are three-parted. As you move down a little bit, five-parted, and in some instances further down the stem, seven-parted. That is, there are 1, 2, 3 leaflets that compose the compound leaf in its entirety, 5 and 7, sometimes 9. Now, this isn't always totally straightforward. You may have some 5-parted leaves near the top. You may have some 3-parted leaves down lower. But in general, as you come down from the flower head, you have rose leaflets in 3s, 5s, and 7s. So this helps to inform you in terms of pruning. Let's take a look at this overall stem here. This is a really nice modern shrub rose called Sally Holmes, a vigorous bush or a short climber. As we move down, you'll see there's a 3-parted leaf and then a couple of 5-parted leaves, and such as we move down. So you generally would ignore the 3-parted leaf and then look for the first 5-parted leaf and then make a cut above the one below that, ideally in a direction that's facing outward to kind of get the bush to arch out and be open centered. And yet there's another little caveat here, which is here we have the first 5-parted leaf, but it's a pretty skinny little stem there. So I invoke the pencil rule. You want where you cut to on the stem to be about the girth of a pencil. Thus, I'm just going to go down a little more, cut to a 5-parted leaf facing outward like that. The idea here is that at the base of the stem of the leaflet is a vegetative bud. When you cut above it, that will stimulate that bud to grow, and that new growth, vigorous hopefully, will terminate in 4 to 6 weeks in a nice second round of bloom. So you're stimulating the next round of bloom. As soon as you can get in after the rose has bloomed and do this, supplement it with some general cleanup on the plant and on the ground, and fertilizer and water, the quicker and the more vigorous the subsequent growth, and the sooner you'll be off to having blooms again. Like I said, generally 4 to 6 weeks down the road. Let's go down the stem here and kind of take apart the components of the leaf structure. Starting at the top, you'll see a 3-parted leaf. Moving down a little more, you'll see a 5-parted leaf. Moving down even more is a 7-parted leaf. Okay, so again, this is the way roses throw their compound leaves. And in general, the way to approach summer pruning is ignore the top 3-parted leaves, find the first 5-parted leaf, and then cut above the next one. Ideally, the one you cut above will be facing outward to facilitate a nice open center, allow plenty of sunlight and air circulation in the core of the bush. So I've got a 3-parted leaf, I've got a 5-parted leaf, and then I've got another 5-parted leaf here. But now I'm going to invoke the pencil's girth rule, which is that in order to generate strong and long growth that will be topped with blooms again, you need the girth of your stem that you cut to be about a pencil's diameter like that. So I've got 3, 5, 5, but I'm going to go down here and cut to this. It's a 7-parted leaf here. And that should generate new growth. Let me just say that unseen to us here, the base of this leaf here is a vegetative bud. When you cut above it, that will stimulate that bud to grow and give you the new round of growth, subsequently followed by bloom. Let me also note, this is very important with roses, don't do what I have done here. Don't leave an appreciable stub. When you make a cut, make it at a 45-degree angle, facing away from the bud, like that. Leave a little bit of a stub. If you leave an appreciable stub, you might be subject to a disorder, a disease called dieback. It could cause the stem to die back into the bud and kill it. It could actually go down the plant, kill the whole stem. It could be fairly, almost fatal like that. So don't leave much of a stub. Cut above the right bud, facing in an outward direction, and then again, ASAP, fertilizer, water, general plant and ground cleanup, stand back and admire your work, be patient, wait a month or so, and you're into a new round of bloom.